In the grim twilight of World War II, amidst the profound bitterness and deep-seated animosities of global conflict,
an extraordinary directive emerged from an unexpected quarter, Camp Ellis, Illinois.
Imagine, if you will, a group of German prisoners of war, not men, but women, captured on the front lines, being offered not just humane treatment, but unprecedented liberty. Supervised excursions into an American town. This wasn't merely a compassionate gesture. It was a calculated deviation from typical wartime protocols, raising questions about strategy and intent. Historically, the treatment of posts varied wildly, with many nations, particularly those of the Axis, notorious for their brutal disregard of the 1929 Geneva Convention. Yet, here, the United States, which housed over 400,000 German POWs by 1945, was pushing the boundaries of internment, leveraging a policy designed not just for detainment, but for re-education and potential cultural transformation. At the heart of this unfolding narrative was Sergeant Anna Richter, a German medical auxiliary captured during the brutal Battle of the Bulge. For 6 months, her experience at Camp Ellis had consistently defied the dehumanizing enemy portrayals she'd been fed by German propaganda. Here she found ample provisions, heated barracks, and diligent medical care. Amenities often superior to those provided to frontline German soldiers. But this latest announcement, displayed prominently in both English and German, pushed even American generosity to its limits. A decree granting supervised town visits to prisoners demonstrating exemplary conduct. Before we delve into the astounding implications of this program and the journey of these women, please take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever encountered stories of unexpected compassion in wartime? The announcement ignited a firestorm of speculation among the 147 female POWs at Camp Ellis, a cohort comprising nurses, communications specialists, and auxiliary personnel swept up in Germany's desperate final counteroffensive. Too many, like Greta Hoffmann, a former Luftwaffe radio operator and honest bunkmate. They merely seek to identify who among us might attempt escape, thereby justifying harsher punishments, Greta whispered, her voice thick with suspicion. Anna herself, despite having observed American adherence to international law and even exceeding humanitarian standards, a stark contrast to the anticipated executions or brutal imprisonments, found her skepticism deepening. The notice conspicuously omitted any mention of shackles, armed guards, or chains for these excursions to Russia. The stipulations were simple: good BR English proficiency, and a signed agreement to return. This absence of overt control, paradoxically, only heightened the feeling that something more profound, and perhaps more insidious, was at play. "Sergeant Matthews is approaching," Greta murmured, instinctively straightening her posture as the American military police coordinator walked towards them. "Ladies," Matthews greeted them in fluent German, "I see you are reading about the town visit program. Who among you is interested in participating this Saturday?" A few tentative hands rose. Anna, however, kept hers firmly by her side, still profoundly skeptical of the Americans' true motives. "Miss Richter," Matthews sighed, addressing her directly, "your English proficiency is the highest in the camp, and your conduct record is exemplary. You would be an ideal candidate for the first group." "What is the actual purpose of this?" Anna asked, her tone direct and unyielding. "Why would you allow enemy prisoners of war to visit an American town?" Matthews smiled. "Because you are no longer merely enemy prisoners of war. You are individuals who will eventually return to Germany, carrying with you the experiences gained here. We want those stories to be true." That night, lying on her comfortable bunk in the heated barracks, Anna grappled with the decision. Through her window, she could discern the distant, twinkling lights of Rushville. A small American town she might, in just 3 days, freely walk into. While escorted, she would be unchained, treated as a visitor rather than a captive. "I'm going," Greta announced from the adjacent bunk, her voice resolute. "Regardless of their motives, I want to see what an American town is like. I want to understand these people who feed us better than our own army did." Anna closed her eyes, picturing herself strolling down an American Main Street, devoid of chains, free from the constant fear that had defined her existence for years. The possibility seemed too incredible to grasp. Yet, the Americans had been unfailingly reliable in their promises. Tomorrow, she resolved, she would add her name to the volunteer list, to see if American generosity truly extended beyond the confines of the POW camp. The following Saturday morning dawned with unseasonably warm weather. A bus, seemingly more suited for a school excursion than prisoner transport, arrived. Anna, along with 11 other German women, stood outside the camp's administrative building, clad in their cleanest uniforms, clutching small purses containing the American dollars provided by the camp for their town visit, genuine pocket money. "I still cannot believe they gave us money," whispered Margaret Vogel, a former German clerk from Hamburg who, despite evident nervousness, had volunteered real American currency to spend in their shops. Sergeant Matthews and Corporal Peterson appeared, both in casual uniforms, eschewing the military police attire Anna had anticipated for a POW escort mission. There were no visible weapons, no restraints, no overt signs that this was anything but a group outing. "Ladies," Matthews began in his increasingly fluent German, "today you will be visiting Rushville, a town of 3,200 people. You will have 3 hours to explore the downtown area, browse the shops, and observe American civilian life. Corporal Peterson and I will accompany you, but we are your guides, not your guards." "What if someone tries to escape?" inquired Ingrid Bauer, a medical auxiliary captured while tending to wounded German soldiers. "Then they would miss out on a delicious lunch at Murphy's Diner and disappoint the American families who have volunteered to meet you," Peterson responded with mild humor. "Besides, where would you go? You are in the middle of Illinois farmland, wearing German uniforms and speaking accented English. You would be found within hours and kindly returned to camp by local authorities." This logic was irrefutable, yet it also revealed a profound American side. They were not concerned about escape because they believed their treatment of prisoners was so superior that flight held no appeal. The bus journey through the Illinois countryside offered Anna a revelation, a glimpse into American prosperity she had never imagined. Thriving farms boasted modern equipment, roads were impeccably maintained, and houses with electric lights and cars in every driveway dotted the landscape. There were no shell craters, no military checkpoints, no discernible scars of the total war that had devastated Europe. "Look at those barns," Greta exclaimed, pointing to massive agricultural structures larger than entire village churches back in Germany. As they approached Rushville's main street, Anna pressed her face to the bus window and Augie clean sidewalks, bustling shops, and well-dressed civilians going about their daily routines without fear. There were no rationing queues, no pervasive tension that had defined German life for years. "Ladies," Matthews announced as the bus came to a halt, "welcome to America. Remember, today you represent Germany. Show these people what true German women are like." The bus door opened, and for the first time in 6 months, Anna stepped onto American soil as something akin to a free person. No chains, no shackles, no armed escort, just 12 German posts, about to discover what freedom felt like in an American town. Rushville's main street buzzed with Saturday morning activity. The sight of 12 uniformed German women walking unescorted among American civilians, who greeted them with curious smiles rather than hostile stares, made Anna feel acutely exposed and vulnerable. Paradoxically, the absence of restraints seemed to make her more conspicuous, not less. "Good morning, ladies," called Mrs. Henderson from behind the counter of Henderson's General Store. "Sergeant Matthews told us you'd be visiting today. Welcome to Rushville." The warmth in her voice contradicted everything Anna had been taught about American attitudes towards Germans. These people did not cower in fear, nor did they demand that enemy posts be locked away. Instead, they seemed genuinely pleased to meet women who, just months ago, had been fighting their country. "Your English is excellent," Mrs. Henderson continued, addressing Anna directly. "Would you like to look around our store? We have some goods you might find interesting. Fabrics, books. Toiletries, you can purchase some for yourselves." Anna and Greta exchanged a glance, both struggling to process the surreal experience of shopping in an American store while wearing German military uniforms. The shelves were laden with commodities that had vanished from German shops years ago. Real coffee, chocolate, silk stockings, cosmetics, Books in multiple languages? How much for the coffee? Margaret asked hesitantly, examining a bag of beans that would have cost a month's wages on the German black market. 35 cents a pound. Mrs. Henderson replied. Care for a sample? I just brewed a fresh pot. The women accepted small cups of genuine American coffee, their expressions reflecting the same wonder Anna had felt during her first breakfast at the POW camp. This was not the chicory substitute they were accustomed to in Germany. This was real coffee, offered freely by an American civilian to former enemy combatants. Why are you so kind to us? Ingrid asked bluntly. We fought against your sons, Joe, our husbands. Some of you must have lost family members because of people like us. Mrs. Henderson's smile faltered slightly, and she paused in silence. My son, Tommy, was killed at Normandy, she finally said. 20 years old, he died on that beach before he ever saw Paris. An uneasy silence fell among the German women, anticipating the hostility and condemnation they believed they deserved. But Mrs. Henderson continued. Tommy didn't die for me to hate German girls who might have been just as scared, hungry, and far from home as he was. He died so that people could choose kindness over hatred, so that we could build something better than what came before. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. In Germany, such sentiment would be condemned as weakness, a betrayal of fallen soldiers who demanded vengeance. But here, a mother who had suffered an unbearable loss chose forgiveness over anger, understanding over retribution. Care to see more of the town? Corporal Peterson suggested, sensing the emotional weight of the moment. The library has an excellent collection, and Murphy's Diner is famous for its apple pie. As they walked along Main Street, Anna noticed American civilians nodding politely, children waving from their bicycle seats, and shopkeepers emerging from doorways to greet these unusual visitors. No one, it seemed, was afraid of 12 unchained German posts, walking freely through their community. This is impossible, she whispered to Greta. People do not treat their enemies this way, perhaps. Greta mused in response. That is why they are winning the war. Murphy's Diner buzzed with Saturday afternoon conversations, local farmers, shopkeepers, and families sharing tables with German POWs, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Anna sat beside Mrs. Murphy, a kindly woman who insisted on explaining every item on the menu and recommended her famous apple pie with vanilla ice cream. This is my first time eating in an American restaurant, Anna confessed, examining the extensive menu, whose offerings were unimaginable in wartime Germany. In Germany, we haven't had restaurants like this since 1940. Then we'll have to make it special, Mrs. Murphy declared, motioning to her waitress. Sarah, bring these girls the full Saturday special. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls, and pie on the house. We have money, Anna protested, touching the dollars in her purse. We do not seek charity. This isn't charity, dear. It's hospitality. And Mrs. Murphy's eyes twinkled. Word got around about you German girls helping out at the church social last month, teaching the children about European geography. This is our way of saying thank you. Anna remembered the day camp volunteers had been invited to the local Methodist church to assist with a youth education program. She had expected suspicion and hostility, but instead found American children eager to learn about pre-war Germany, about normal life and customs beyond the conflict that defined their world's perception. The children asked such thoughtful questions, Margaret added from across the table, not about the military, but about schools, festivals, and the games German children play. They wanted to understand people, not just politics. A steady Ned, Anna observed how naturally the German women integrated into the diner's social fabric. Greta was discussing farming techniques with a local wheat grower. Ingrid was showing an American mother photographs of her family, who, in turn, shared pictures of her own children. Conversations flowed freely between English and German, with diners patiently helping each other translate when needed. This feels like a dream, Anna whispered to Sergeant Matthews, who sat discreetly by the counter, maintaining a low-key oversight. 6 months ago, I was in a bunker tending 2 wounded soldiers while American planes bombed overhead. Now I'm eating apple pie with the families of American airmen. How do you feel? Matthews asked. Anna considered his question carefully, confused, grateful, ashamed, Perhaps that we held such terrible beliefs about people who have shown us nothing but kindness. Through the diner's window, she could see American flags fluttering along Rushville's Main Street, alongside handmade welcome banners that someone had created for their visit. Children pressed their faces to the glass, waving at the German women, who, with increasing confidence, waved back. "Sergeant Matthews," she said softly, "what happens when we return to Germany?" How do we explain all this to people living in bombed cities, suffering from hunger and cold, and angry about defeat? Matthews stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "Perhaps you tell them what you saw here. Perhaps you help them understand there's another way to live, another way to treat people, even former enemies." As the afternoon waned and they prepared to return to camp, Anna realized her understanding of the world had fundamentally shifted. She had walked freely in an American town, eaten at American tables, and been treated with dignity and respect by people who had every reason to hate her. The chains she had expected to wear had been replaced by something far more potent. The realization that human kindness could transcend national borders, political ideologies, and the bitter legacies of war. The bus ride back to Camp Ellis was quiet, the 12 German women silently processing experiences that had challenged every belief they held about American society and their own place in the world. Anna gazed out the window at the Illinois farmland bathed in the golden afternoon sun, still unable to believe she had walked freely in an enemy town for 3 hours, without restraints, guards, or hostility. "Did that truly happen?" Greta murmured softly. "Did we just have lunch with American families who treated us like guests, not prisoners?" "I have receipts to prove it," Margaret replied, displaying a small bag of purchases from Henderson's general store. "So, stationery, an American flag pin that Mrs. Henderson had insisted she take." Anna pulled out her own acquisitions, a book of American poetry, and a postcard of Rushville's Main Street, which she intended to send to her sister in Munich, though she doubted any censor would believe her account of the day's events. "Will you tell your families about today?" Ingrid asked, vocalizing the question they were all pondering. "The truth," Anna responded, "that American civilians invited enemy prisoners of war to eat in their restaurants, shop in their stores, and walk freely in their town. That mothers who lost sons in the war chose forgiveness over retribution, hospitality over hatred." As they approached the camp gates, Anna felt an unexpected pang of sadness. The afternoon's freedom was ending, and she would return to the barracks, the fences, and the fixed routines of prisoner life. But something had irrevocably changed. She had tasted freedom, experienced dignity, and discovered that the America she had been taught to fear was, in fact, a place where a former enemy could become a welcome guest. "Will you join the trip again next week?" Sergeant Matthews asked as they disembarked. "Yes," Anna replied, without hesitation. "I want to bring more women with me. They need to see what we saw today." That night, the barracks buzzed with excited conversation as the 12 returnees described their experiences to eager, envious listeners. Stories of apple pie and friendly shopkeepers, of children asking about German fairy tales, and mothers sharing family photos of a town where an enemy POW could walk freely among people who chose kindness over fear. "It sounds impossible," said Maria, a newcomer captured just weeks prior. "You mean the Americans let you roam freely in their town without chains or armed escort?" "Not just allowed," Anna corrected. "Invited, welcomed, treated as respected guests, not dangerous prisoners." She produced her purchased poetry book, her fingers tracing the cover. Inside, Mrs. Henderson had inscribed a dedication. "To Anna, may understanding grow between our peoples, and may all nations know a better future." "My God, I can't believe it," Maria repeated, shaking her head. "This contradicts everything we were told about American brutality and hatred toward Germans. Believe it." Greta stated firmly, "I walked down an American Main Street today without chains, ate lunch with families who lost sons fighting Germany, and was shown more respect than I ever received from my own military commanders." As lights out approached and conversation faded, Anna lay on her comfortable bunk, savoring the day's revelations. She had discovered that freedom was not merely the absence of physical restraint. It encompassed human dignity, the recognition that even former enemies deserved respect and kindness. Tomorrow would bring the familiar camp routine, but it would also bring applications for next week's town visit, and a growing realization that she was no longer merely a prisoner of war. She had witnessed American values firsthand, seen bridges built between former enemies, and, perhaps, most importantly, she was a woman learning to believe in the possibility of redemption through unexpected grace. The chains that had never physically bound her were replaced by something far more powerful. The hope that former enemies could become friends. May 1945. Germany surrendered, and the town visit program entered a new phase. Anna, now regarded as a veteran of interactions with American civilians, found herself leading new batches of POWs on their inaugural trips to Russia. This responsibility was both an honor and a burden, as she witnessed their initial shock at experiencing unbridled liberty in what was technically enemy territory. "This cannot be real," whispered Elena Brandt, a communications specialist captured during the final collapse in Bavaria. She walked stiffly down Main Street, constantly glancing back for the non-existent guards and restraints. "It is real," Anna assured her, pausing at the doorway of Henderson's general store, from which Mrs. Henderson waved from behind the counter. "You will understand once you meet these people." The end of the war also brought changes to Camp Ellis. Repatriation discussions dominated evening conversations, but an increasing number of posts spoke of immigration opportunities and the possibility of permanently settling in America. The town visits had forged unexpected connections between former adversaries, relationships that transcended the political boundaries of the conflict. "Anna," yelled Tommy Henderson, Mrs. Henderson's nephew, as he zoomed by on his bicycle. The 12-year-old had become an unofficial ambassador between the German women and Rushville's younger residents. "My aunt wants to know if you can help with the church picnic next weekend. She needs someone bilingual to coordinate games." This invitation signaled Anna's complete transformation of identity, from enemy POW to community volunteer, from dangerous prisoner to trusted neighbor. This evolution astonished her even more than her physical liberation. "Of course," she replied, ruffling his hair. "Tell your aunt I would be honored to help." At Murphy's Diner, Saturday lunch now featured a standing reservation for visiting people. Easy conversation flowed between German women and American families, forging friendships that had seemed impossible mere months ago. "My daughter wants to learn German," Mrs. Murphy mentioned, as she served Anna her usual order. "Would you consider teaching her? We could arrange it through the camp administration." Anna nodded, touched by the request. Teaching American children her native language felt like building bridges rather than maintaining barriers, like creating understanding rather than perpetuating division. "Mrs. Murphy," Anna ventured carefully, "may I ask your true feelings about former enemies residing permanently in your community? Some of us are considering immigration applications." Mrs. Murphy sat beside her, considering the question earnestly. "My dear, you have been a part of this community for months now. You have helped at church events, taught our children, and treated our neighbors with respect and kindness. In my eyes, you are already Americans. You just need some papers to make it official." As the afternoon shadows lengthened, Anna realized that town visits had achieved something neither side had anticipated. They were a testament to the fact that humanity could transcend nationality, and that former enemies could become genuine friends through simple acts of mutual dignity and respect. Days later, August 1945, brought the atomic bomb, Japan's surrender, and the official end of World War II in Russia. The news was celebrated with a community picnic, attended by German posts as honored guests, not supervised captives. Anna stood by the bandstand, the American flag fluttering alongside a handmade banner declaring, "Welcome our German friends." "Ladies and gentlemen," Mayor Johnson announced, addressing the mixed assembly of American civilians and German women. "Today we celebrate not only the victory of war, but the victory over hatred, suspicion, and the prejudice that divides nations." The mayor's speech was met with applause from both Americans and Germans, a sound unimaginable when Anna first arrived in Illinois. Around her, former adversaries shared picnic tables, played games together, celebrating peace with a unity of people that transcended uniforms and borders. Anna walked towards Mrs. Henderson, holding what appeared to be official documents. "These are your immigration papers. The town council voted unanimously to sponsor your applications for permanent residency." Anna gazed at the forms that represented a future she had never dared to imagine. The legal right to reside in America, to work and live among the people who had become more than just her captors. They had become friends, surrogate family, a bridge to a new identity she was still learning to embrace. The whole town voted, she asked, overwhelmed by the gesture. Every registered voter, Mrs. Henderson confirmed. You've earned your place here, dear. You showed us what the German people are truly like when they were not forced to fight a war they never wanted. As evening fell, Anna found herself standing at the bandstand, addressing the crowd, the former German auxiliary, speaking freely to the American community that had embraced her. The moment felt surreal, completely overturning all her expectations of life in captivity. 6 months ago, I was captured with the firm belief that Americans were my enemies, she began, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gathering. I anticipated chains, brutality, and treatment that would confirm everything I had been taught about your character. She paused, looking out at the faces that had become familiar, faces that had opened their homes and hearts to women who had once fought their country. Instead, I found people who chose kindness over retribution, generosity over hatred, and hope over despair. You did not merely free me from physical chains. You freed me from the mental shackles of prejudice and propaganda that bound me far more tightly. The applause that followed was heartfelt and sustained, but Anna was not finished. Today, as we celebrate the end of this terrible war, I want to thank you for showing me what true victory looks like. Not conquest and domination, but transformation and redemption. You taught me that the strongest chains are those we forge through kindness, and the greatest freedom comes from learning to trust former enemies. As fireworks illuminated the Illinois night sky in celebration of peace, Anna realized her own liberation was complete. She was no longer a German prisoner of war in America. She was becoming an American, a person who had discovered that home was not where you were born, but a community that chose to accept you. September 1950. 5 years after the war, Anna Henderson, having married Mrs. Henderson's nephew, Tommy, upon his return from college, stood in the Rushville Community Center, teaching German to American children, whose parents remembered her first walk down their streets as an enemy POW, Guten Morgen, Frau Henderson. 20 young voices chorused their American-accented German charm in Anna into a loving smile rather than a corrective frown. Sehr gut, she replied in English, before switching to German for the practice. Today, we will learn about German holidays and traditions, the positive aspects of my homeland I wish for you to know. Through the classroom window, she could see Main Street, the place where she had first experienced American freedom. Henderson's General Store now sold her homemade fruit tarts. Murphy's Diner offered German specials on Saturday nights, and the Methodist Church hung a banner announcing an upcoming Oktoberfest celebration organized by former POWs who had chosen to remain in America. Frau Henderson, 8-year-old, Sarah Murphy asked, "Were you really scared when you first came here without chains?" Anna smiled at the question, which indicated how thoroughly her story had become part of local lore. "Very scared," she admitted. "I thought Americans would hate me for being German, for fighting in the war. But your grandparents taught me that the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them a friend." After class, she walked through town as she did every evening, still marveling at how completely her identity had shifted. The woman who once coordinated military communications for the German army now coordinated community events for Rush German-American Friendship Festival. "Any regret?" Greta Schmidt asked, joining her for their weekly coffee. She had married a local farmer and now managed the grain elevator with characteristic German efficiency, boosting productivity by 30%. Regrets about what? Choosing American freedom over German shackles. Anna chuckled at the old question, one they had asked each other hundreds of times over the years. "I didn't choose between freedom and shackles, Greta. I found that the strongest shackles are those we forge through love, community, and belonging. The Americans did not just unbind my physical body. They helped me forge new bonds that connected me to something far greater than myself." That evening, as she prepared dinner in the kitchen of the home where Tommy had grown up, Anna reflected on her journey from enemy POW to American citizen. The small town that had first seen her walk freely, unchained down Main Street, was now where she walked as an official member of the community, her German heritage enriching rather than threatening the local culture. "Mom?" Anna called to her adopted daughter. Lisa, who rushed into the kitchen with a homework question about European geography. Can you help me understand the difference between East and West Germany? As she helped Lisa with her homework about her homeland's post-war division, Anna realized her own liberation was complete and permanent. She had been freed not only from physical imprisonment, but also from the mental prison of hatred, prejudice, and narrow nationalism that had defined her early life. The chains that had never bound her body were replaced by the bonds of love, community, and purpose, which held her more securely to America than any steel ever could. Every day she walked freely through the streets of Rushville. She was reminded of that moment when she first could not believe an enemy could be given liberty, and discovered that the trust liberty bestowed could create a loyalty no force could ever achieve. In an American town, former enemies became family, and the strongest of all chains were those forged through kindness, patience, and the radical belief that people could change, could choose, and could become better than their worst moments.